They were born in bloody circumstance. To go, leave me, run like you've never run before. A voice from the underground, given room to breathe, not puppy drowned. So die if you get the chance. Better men than you've been, let this dance. To go, leave me, run like you've never run before. I have seen the worst, and there is nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down, my brothers, on the ground. I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me away. To go, leave me, run like you never did. No, believe me, run like you've never run before. Yeah.
Everybody, why am I muted? There I'm not. Hello, the gremlins are in the system. What was going on with that? John just said nobody had any sound at all during that theme tune.
I do you know, I was doing my bit to make sure total professionalism at the start. I even private messaged you behind the scenes, but
You did.
you just don't pay attention to me, so it's fine. Just try to do right by you. That's
You've just given them too much power. That's the problem.
That's the problem. That's it. Yeah.
Power's going to his head, man.
So, yeah, here we go. Anyway, that's what we're here now, and that's what counts. It's all worked. I don't know what's going. Maybe I've got a new lighting rig set up. So if you can see, I'm trying to. I've got filters on and all sorts, trying to make myself look a bit more handsome on the camera. That's what's messed it all up, I think. So, hello everybody. Welcome to the Scottish Rugby podcast, brought to you by the Scottish Rugby blog. I am Cammy Black. We've got a second podcast of the week this week, so it's quite frankly too much to talk about in one sitting. So we've already done our review of the third test, but this weekend saw the opening round of the FORSOC Super 6. I've got to get that right because I keep saying FOSROC, but it's FORSOC Super 6.
FOSROC sounds like it's like a 90s TV program.
It sounds like it was a section in the Muppets.
Yeah.
I was going to say a Muppet band.
I'm sure with that, they're a fine sponsor, and we're grateful to them for sponsoring the Super 6 anyway. We'll get on to that later on. So they've been the first round of games of this weekend, so we're going to have a wee chat about that. The other point of business this evening is the teams for the Springboks and the Lions have been announced for the test, at the weekend. So this is a good opportunity to kind of have a bit of a preview of that game. Shall we just launch straight into this then? Because we did our prediction, didn't we, Craig? I'll start with you. We on Monday night we thought we'll have although it was kind of irrelevant within 24 hours of the podcast going out, we thought have a little crack at predicting what they might do. And I think it's safe to say that this isn't the team that we predicted would be put out.
I kind of said that they wouldn't really mess around with the forwards that much, and they obviously haven't, to the eternal dismay of many A, Scotland fan, and B, quite a lot of other fans that aren't English regarding Mr. Laws. We thought they weren't going to mess around too much because it's too important, and then Gatland has gone, no, let's get rid of his, let's change it around as much as we possibly can. But it seems that he has gone back to some semblance of the pods that he's been playing in the warm up games. So maybe he's decided to actually do what he was going to do in the first place. You never know.
Yeah, I mean the forwards for me is the one that's the real head scratcher, because we said, I think in the last podcast, John, you weren't there, but you obviously watched the game at the weekend, that the forward pack in the second half got absolutely murdered by the South Africans, and the fact that you've got someone like Maro Itoje resorting to kneeling on someone's chest shows that they were under immense amounts of pressure. I'm not saying that Maro Itoje isn't above a bit of craphousery, because he's Mr. Craphousery personified, but you could tell they were rattled. The Maul was at sea, and the Maul defence in particular, they had no clue what they were doing. Have I frozen?
No, you're not frozen. I think it's John that's frozen.
John froze. There we go. It's John that's frozen then. I thought it was me. I think it's just you. You're backing out. It was Craig was sitting really still, which threw me.
Sorry,
I know
apologies.
it's a bit odd, isn't it? Yeah.
Craig was sitting really still. I thought, is that me or Craig? Have I frozen? Anyway, John, yes. So that pack got murdered.
Yeah.
So why we're back with them again? Particularly, I mean, did you watch Squidge's video today?
Yeah, I did. Yep.
Particularly given that the laziness that was showing up for Courtney Laws, I don't understand it.
It's a very strange decision, isn't it? And there's almost an element of the change that has been made. Obviously, bringing in Ken Owens. Owens was shocking as well.
Yeah,
really, really bad. And he's rewarded that with a test start. I mean, it's
my only thing is
madness, isn't it?
my only thing about Ken Owens is he stuck him in because it's for the front row to go in with Wyn Jones, because they're used to scrummaging together. Yeah. And he wants. I mean, I'd be interested to find out from you, Craig. How much does it matter as a prop to be alongside a hooker you're familiar with? Because do they do much other than just kind of add ballast?
Well, I can't even describe how off-putting that comment is, Cammy, because we are a brotherhood in the front row, and we get each other in and out of trouble, whether we're on the field or out the field. I think, for me, it is important because you learn a certain way, especially a loose head and a hooker, a tight head. We borrow in and we tight in and we do all our bits and pieces when we can, and we're fairly solid. But the loose head and the hooker do quite a how can I put it? They have a technically difficult job together, so it's always quite a good thing to have them both together and scrummaging together at the same time, because they know each other and they've played a long time with each other.
Yeah, that was the only reason I thought that Owens probably comes in ahead of anybody else, just because of the amount of trouble that the scrum was in, particularly in that second half. I mean, you said, Craig, that it was Rory Sutherland. It has. I think he's reached a kind of a peak and plateaued a little bit with the Lions, and it's no bad thing, because it's the pinnacle of Test rugby as a Lions, and he did his bit, but obviously the scrum's struggling, so they've got to try something different.
Oh, I have no qualms whatsoever with Wyn Jones coming in. Wyn Jones has done did a fairly, a pretty good job the last time he played before he got injured. He looked incredibly solid, and he is a great player. So I've got no qualms. Him and Ty Furlong, I think, will be an absolute. Well, it's the strongest combination. I think the only question mark is over hooker. And I think, just as we've talked about, it was a toss up between Ken Owens or oh God, he's just gone right out of my head. Luke Cowan-Dickie, yeah. It was a toss up between who starts, and I think Cowan-Dickie's the more dynamic off the bench. So I think you're probably better that Owens starts.
Yeah, I mean the second row is not really a surprise. I think we always knew they were going to be Alan Wyn Jones and Mario Itoje. I mean, Adam Beard has come on to the bench, John, and the game he played against South Africa, it's maybe I'd say it'd be a surprise he hasn't been there earlier. But I guess with having Laws in the back row and Byrne on the bench, there hasn't really been room for him, given whatever tactics it is that they've decided that they need to play.
Yeah, no, there hasn't been room for him, but that isn't to say that there should have. I mean, there should have been room for him. His performances on tour, as we've seen with quite a few people, have come on tour, put their hands up, and said, "Do you know what? I'm actually like." Maybe you think I'm third or fourth choice in this position, but I'm touring well, I'm playing well, I'm on form. He's one of those guys, and I think he should have been in. I mean,
John, you're breaking up again. I don't know if is that your end as well, Craig?
Yeah, I'm getting. He's unfortunately breaking up with me as well.
We're heartbroken here, John.
I'm going to.
John's away to put some money in the meter. We'll carry on, Craig, while John goes and put some money in the meter. I'm going to be up half the night and all that out. The back row, I think, is interesting because did you see the Squidge's video today that's gone out? Yeah. So for those that haven't seen it, it's well worth a watch because it talks a lot about what went wrong in a lot more detail and what the Springboks tactics were and how they the Lions were a little bit found out tactically at the weekend. One of the things the video highlights is for the first South African try, and that's the interesting thing with things like this because I think we've been guilty of it before on this podcast. The temptation is to look at the very last thing that happened before a try was scored and then blame the player closest. So of course it's that first try, it was Conan, Hogg and Watson who were at sea, but actually what Squidge is very good at doing, which is why he's so successful, is tries are always scored at least 2-3 phases before the ball actually crosses the line. And I think just the phase before, there's a ruck and Dan Biggar is actually hitting Courtney Laws to tell him to move out, to push the defensive line out, and he doesn't move. That to me is absolutely criminal at that level, and it astounds me because that can't have been missed. I mean, the fact that Dan Biggar was is slapping him, there's no way that's going to be missed in a post-match review. So how he's still in the team is utterly baffling to me.
Yeah, well, the only thing I can think of is that they've got him there as two things. In the first test, he was very good in the air, and we've been pretty. The Lions have been pretty. They were torn apart in the air in the second half at the last test. But also, he's a direct replacement really for Mario Itoje, and you've got Beard on the bench to replace Alan Wyn Jones. And I think, you've got Byrne. I think I think would be a more dynamic player, but I think they've just gone for heavy duty because they were beaten up so much. And whether I totally agree with you. It's absolutely ridiculous, especially considering the Lions are supposed to be the fitter team. But to be I think that's the only reason. I think it's just because he can come in and he can replace Maro Itoje straight away if there's any problems.
Yeah, I do wonder, John, whether or not it's just a case of it's been too late for the Lions to change their game plan to deploy a more dynamic back row rather than the lumps that they've got in there.
Yeah, they seem to have picked a back row with a very particular purpose, and it is, they've kind of committed to that. So tough to shake.
Tough to shake. You're still a bit breaky uppy, John.
I know, guys. I'm not really sure what's going on here, so
We'll see if it catches up as we go on. So we've got then the backs. I mean, looking at it, Bundy Aki's coming at 12, Craig, and to play alongside Robbie Henshaw. It's obviously it's an established combination. I think Chris Harris is very unlucky for me to miss out because I don't think the combination of Harris and Henshaw did much wrong at the weekend to warrant kind of that panic of, kind of going with something completely different.
Yeah, for me, I think it's just I think, as Gatland has said, he's looking to play a bit more, and I think I think hopefully he's going to start. Bigger's going to start throwing some flat passes and using Aki to attack the space, and he, going back to a Manu Tuilagi style of smash it up at 12, and I think Henshaw is more of the playmaker outside him. I think Chris Harris was unlucky because he had Watson outside him on the last weekend, and Watson was just all at sea. I really felt that. I don't know if I may be wrong, but I just felt Watson was at sea. So I think Chris Harris was doing a little bit more, or having to play a little bit more in defence, especially.
That was just your tartan glasses, Craig. That's a problem.
That's
You can't see any fault with the Scottish lads. Speaking of Scottish lads, speaking of the Scottish players, we've got Hoggs gone completely out of the match day squad. Again, we talked about this in the last podcast a bit, that your back three are not solely responsible for what happens in the air. They've got a responsibility to try and catch it, but they need help to do that. They need to support the players around them to protect them. Yeah. And again, if you watch Robbie Owen Squidge's video, he goes in a lot more detail on this. Basically, the back three had absolutely no protection whatsoever from their teammates. You had Conor Murray in absolutely the wrong place. You had I think Courtney Laws again. Just you got offering no support. The back, I think we identified there was at least one point where you had the centres completely isolated and absolutely mullered by the Springbok back row. Yeah. So I don't know. I think that there's a slightly bitter taste about Stuart Hogg being dropped, because for all his detractors online, it wasn't 100% down to him, and I'm not necessarily sure, like we've said, that Liam Williams coming in is an improvement.
No, I think they've gone for the sweeping statement of, we need to do something about the kicking game and the bombs that South Africa are going to send them that way, by changing the people who catch them rather than changing the setup of their defence. And obviously we'll talk about Duhan in a minute, I guess, but I think Stuart Hogg was should have been what I felt was the right choice, with my tartan tinted glasses on again. But I think he didn't. I think he had a quiet game, but that was mainly because of the setup of the attack. They were under pressure all the time. They didn't get a chance to get the ball out and attack as he would usually do. So I think he had a quiet game. But again, he didn't spill the ball as much as others did. And
Mhm.
also, there was and thanks to Robbie for Squidge Rugby for his fantastic work. As you watch, as he goes through it, you do see that there's nobody there to receive any balls coming back if they are knocked back by a hand, which he did a couple of times as well. So, as we said, we didn't think he would change the back three wholesale, but he kind of has.
Yeah. There was one interesting Rugby Pass. Is Ben Smith, not the Ben Smith, the rugby player, but the writer Ben Smith has done a little piece on Rugby Pass about Duhan today. And there's some absolutely phenomenal stats have come out of that that I don't think anybody's picked up on yet. And again, Duhan's got a lot of detractors outside of Scotland, with people with their leek coloured tinted glasses on, and their their rose tinted glasses and their shamrock tinted glasses. Saying it, that Duhan was weak under a poor ball. His defence isn't that good, but actually, this is quite astounding that the Springboks won 0 ball in the first 2 tests in contestable kicks where Duhan was the jumper.
Yeah.
Now that's an amazing across 2 tests against the World Cup winners. For a guy like Duhan, who, let's face it, is wet behind the ears from an international point of view. I know he's a bit older than you would expect. So, like Lewis Rees-Zammit, who's making his debut. Obviously Duhan's taken longer to hit the international scene because he's had to wait to qualify in residency, and his career didn't take off straight away. But for someone to come in and do something like that to the world champions, and also I think Ben Smith points out is the he makes the South African second row drop the ball because he's so worried. He's so conscious that Duhan's advancing on him that he drops the ball. So what Duhan's not doing a lot wrong. In fact, Duhan seems, John, and hopefully John's back with us now. Duhan's doing phenomenally well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there was a lot of cries for him to be punted, as you said. But the stats, the coaches that are sitting coaching this Lions team, they're not silly. They'll have those stats in front of them as well. And he's done exactly what's been asked of him, which is run really, really hard, like the giant big man you are, and try and get the ball back. That's what he's been asked to do. So he's done it really well.
And if you can get the ball back, Craig, smash them into next week.
Absolutely, and that's he's almost an adopted forward in my eyes. But I think also it goes back again to Conor Murray's kicking and how poorly Conor Murray played last week. Because I think if you look at where he's placing the ball, and he's giving the South Africans far more opportunity to catch the ball, and Duhan wasn't getting the opportunity to charge them down and put pressure on them. The last thing you want is someone his size and his build, and especially his Arnold Schwarzenegger accent coming down. It's coming towards you, and you do have to think twice, and that's what you want to do when you're contesting these sort of balls.
Yeah, I mean, the Springboks must have been absolutely rubbing their hands last week, John, when it was Conor Murray announced instead of Ali Price. And we've got a comment from Malcolm Knox here who says, with Faf gone, of course, Faf de Klerk is injured. Legendary status is available to Price. Who would have thought? Talk about taking a chance. George Horn mumbling into his coffee. Poor George Horn. But yeah, I mean, again, Robbie's video, if you want to see the contrast of the kicks Price put in the first test compared to the kicks that Murray put in, and also the way that Price follows up his kicks and protects the catcher, they're worlds apart. And I didn't think we'd be sat. I mean, none of us could have imagined last year, John, that we would be sat here in the third test with the British rugby media screaming for Ali Price to start a scrum half.
Yeah, it's a very valid point, isn't it? And credit where credit's due. Ali Price he's embraced being a Lion, and he's one of those players that seems to have taken him to that next level. Admittedly, if we're being a little bit rubbish about it, he hasn't had much competition because Conor Murray has been honking, and it was funny actually. I saw one of the one of the, let's say, silly journalists who had their say about their team before the team got announced. They were talking about, consistency and form on tour and all this, blah, 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 and then pick Gareth Davis at 9. So, honestly, it's like criminal. You should be actually fired for that sort of nonsense. But anyway, no, I mean, Ali Price, he's really done everything that's been asked of him. And the fact is, Conor Murray was there to box kick, and Conor Murray was there for his kicking game. Ali Price has surpassed his kicking game. So I think we've got a lot to be proud of.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing then, Craig, obviously the exciting news is that his lordship, has come down from on high, juggling balls and 3 beers, and is allocated 3 beers in hand, and descended to the bench, ready to come on and save the Lions tour in the last 20 minutes. It's Finn Russell's finally here, has finally arrived. We talked last time, didn't we, about that there's, we can't win as Scotland fans unless Finn comes on and single-handedly wins this test. But also, because it's Finn Russell, there's also the prospect that Finn Russell can come on and single-handedly loses this test as well.
Yeah, and this is the exciting and what's the word? How can I put it? It's just I'm on so on tender hooks with it, because just as you say, it's either going to be Finn Russell. Wow, why have we been? If you hadn't been injured, we would have won this 3-0. Or it's going to be Finn Russell. Don't ever bring any Scotland players on tour ever again. And Gregor Townsend should be, hounded out of South Africa.
The amazing thing is, a lot of people are saying like Finn Russell can't control rugby games, and that's utter nonsense, because we saw in the Six Nations. I mean, you saw the England game. He controlled that. I mean, I've got the 2 examples of games I'd give in the Six Nations that Finn Russell controlled magnificently, with Ali Price, has to be said, were England and France. And in both games, he got yellow cards.
It seems to be that, and this is what I'm worried about, because he's not going to get enough time. If he starts, then he's got the opportunity in the first 10 minutes to get his yellow card out of the way, focus, and then get back into the game, and then away he goes. But I think what gets most of the pundits, and the thing that enrages most of the pundits, and in all of the countries that we're talking about today, is they can't stand how relaxed he is, and how it does not bother him. If he makes a mistake, he just goes, shrugs his shoulders, has a wee smile, winks at, well, usually if it's Racing, he winks at Simon Zebo, and then off he goes again. And I think it's just that is the, and then he goes off and does something like nutmeg one of the Munster boys, and it just, he is just he's got better and better. He's settled down a little bit. His control has come to him. I think Racing has done him a wonder of good. He's gone from being the wonder kid at Glasgow and then into Racing, where it's, well, if you're going to be the wonder kid, come on, show us, let's go. And I think I can't wait for it. I really wish he was. I wish he was starting, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
I wish he was fit, because it would have been bigger than Russell bigger, all the way through the tests. And it's just that I think I'm feeling a little bit cheated out of it, to be honest with you.
I know. Brody Dunk says we'll never hear the end of it if Finn Russell becomes this tour's Ronan O'Gara.
Well, at least he'll go and start coaching, one of the French teams,
Sat in his travel lodge hotel with his earbuds in, giving his trouser press, giving mid-game commentary. To see Finn properly in a line shot in a test is, I'm excited about that. What I really hope doesn't happen. I mean, Gatland has said, I think in the press conference, that he is going to play some part in the game. What I really hope is that the coaches have the balls to put him on with 20 minutes to go, regardless of what's happening on the field. What I don't want to see is there's 20 to go. It's a tight game.
Mm.
let's not put Finn on because we've got a feeling that he might do something rash. Because I'd hate them to play it conservatively at that point and just say, well, let's just hope that Dan Bigger sees out the game because it's on a knife edge. I think in a winner takes all match like that, you have to roll the dice, and either you're down by a load, stick him on. If that happens, stick him on as soon as possible, and let's just see what happens. If it's on a knife edge, he is the one that can unlock the game for you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in the lead, he's the one that possibly could put it beyond doubt. So whichever way you look at it, I think they have to roll the dice.
They have to, and you know, I'm going to sit here on my and the hill that I'm going to die on is the fact that, and I'm going to say it, when Owen Farrell started throwing flat passes and actually started to play, it looked like we could turn the game. And that is what Finn Russell's all about. You give Finn Russell an aggressive defence, a defence that's blitzing all the time, as the South Africans have been doing, and he will run riot. And I think, you know, because they're firing up, there's nobody behind. He can put balls over. He can put balls between legs. He can throw flat passes behind the advancing defence. He is that sort of player, and I just feel that's what we've been missing. Bigger tried it, and he's
not, as you could see, he was so hesitant when he was trying it. When he was trying the quick, the show and go and trying these things, he's not got the same accuracy, and he hasn't got the same speed to kind of trick the opposition defense.
He also puts too much pressure on himself as well. If you look at him, he's it all goes back to the whole the tics that he used to have when he was going to kick the ball. He is a control player. He likes to control the game, and when he feels he's starting to lose control, he loses his game. Whereas Finn doesn't give a jot, or doesn't show that he gives a jot. You know?
No. I think I've heard people say that you can tell before a game, and I've heard this secondhand, how Finn's going to play. Because if he's all dancing, he's all singing, he's happy, he's juggling, he's doing all these little tricks, he'll play well. But if he's quiet, that's when you worry about Finn.
Yeah.
If he's quiet and in himself, that's when you need to worry about him. I think that the one thing this plays into the Lions' hands is, I think, again, people who are worried about Finn Russell, who, you know, let's face it, they're not the Scottish fans, the rest of the media is. This tour, the Lions haven't shown the hand at all in the warm-up games. They haven't wanted to show the hands. And for all we were saying, you can see the combinations starting to build. You can see what they're going to do. That was obviously never the plan. There was obviously they had a plan for the first test, but it was obviously a plan that they devised and then had to work out how they were going to conceal that going forward so that the Springboks would have no idea what they're going to do.
Yeah,
it's a plan that was very easily worked out for the second test. Finn Russell is a completely unknown quantity here for the Springboks and how he plays. They have no idea what he's going to do or what the Lions are going to allow him to do on the pitch. And you're right. I think Owen Farrell has thrown a few flat passes, but he can't do it with the same degree of accuracy as Finn Russell can. And I'm sure, Owen Farrell is, and that's, again, I'm not, as a Scotland fan, I'm not saying that Owen Farrell undoubtedly has strengths in areas above Finn Russell. All right, I'm not saying that Finn Russell as an all-round player is better than Owen Farrell. They've got the strengths and weaknesses, but for what the Lions have been trying to do in the last quarter when they brought Farrell on, has been to play the Finn Russell game, but Farrell can't do it.
Yeah. Well, go back to that Calcutta Cup match where Finn Russell kind of came off at half-time and went, on the build up to the too many beers in the hotel gate, he said to Tooney, "It's not working. We're going to have to play something else." And Tooney said, "No, we're going to continue to play this kicking game." And he decided, "Nah, screw it. We're going to," and that kind of is making me. It's almost what's repeating itself with the second test. Because we had, the Lions are playing a certain way, and this is what we're going to do. And when it didn't work, well, we doubled down. and that's where we've been missing. You know, you would have been better having someone like Mark, if Finn wasn't available, Marcus Smith on the bench to completely change it up on something like that. You know, you want something completely opposite, and that's what the reason Finn Russell is there, is they want someone completely opposite to Biggar, because there was, you know, Farrell really wasn't in the team or in the squad as a 10. He was going down as a just in case 10 and mainly a 12.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So, what's going to happen at the weekend then, Craig? What's your prediction?
Right, I'm going to go positive. I'm going to say
Good.
I'm going to say Lions are taking it, and I'm going to say that Finn Russell, that's going to be going to crap. You know, Biggar's going to have a tough time of it for the first 30, 35, 40 minutes, and then at halftime, Russell's coming on and he's going to save us all.
Yeah,
That's it.
I'm predicting. We've got is it Marcus? His surname, the guy that the commentator's back for the third test, isn't he?
Yes, yes, I've totally. Yeah, I know who you mean.
He's recovered from cancer surgery. He's back. So I think we hear Price to Russell with a chip over the top to Van der Merwe. Van der Merwe scores, and
Absolutely.
that's the two. And that is the two. And that puts the Lions 7 points ahead with 2 minutes to go, and the game's won. And we get to say for the next 4 years, Price to Russell over the top to Duhan. Duhan scores. It was all down to the Scottish lads.
Yep, and Duhan scored it by battering over the top of Malcolm Marks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And who was clutching his chest because he was still full of COVID. And that's us with and also Tooney is then the next Lions tour head coach.
I think this is the thing. I think, and we will do a proper kind of Lions summary or roundup, I think probably next week. Depending on how it goes. If it goes really well, we'll just talk about the game next week and then we'll do the roundup. If it goes really bad, we'll just do a roundup. I have a hard job seeing Townsend not being the next Lions coach because of the way that the kind of succession planning's gone in previous tours with Gatland. I think if Andy Farrell had gone on this tour, I think you'd have an interest in the next 4 years saying, is it Farrell, is it Townsend? And that might still be a bit of debate. I think it might depend how Scotland go. But the fact he's gone on this tour, I think that, you know, McGeechan took Gatland on the tour before he became head coach. So it's hard to see Townsend not getting the job in 4 years' time. But that is if the Lions still exists as a concept, as a touring concept in 4 years' time.
There's an awful lot of people saying that the Lions aren't a concept. It's an outdated mode of gameplay and this, that, and the other. You know, back to the colonial days. I think it's all. Yeah.
Andrew Gardner says, if I hear the terms test match animal or bomb diffuser again, I'm boycotting the third test. Here, Andrew.
Absolutely.
We've lost John Anderson, our test match animal.
Yeah, I was expecting some bomb diffusal from him, and it's just ridiculous.
Well, he said he's going to be back next week. He's struggling with his Wi-Fi, so he's going to be. He said his internet's being really crap. He's got no upload speed at all, so he's going to be back. We'll get John back next week.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, we've got interesting. We've got a French referee at the weekend, and Rory on the official blog Twitter account made a comment about, it's a fresh referee, so anything goes. And then Ian put out quite an innocent tweet today. I can't remember what it was. It was just a random tweet about the rugby, and Michel Roux Jr., the celebrity chef, replied to Ian and said, "Well, you've got a French referee this weekend." Obviously, you know, tying Ian to the blog, and so I thought we're moving up in the world, Craig. We're getting celebrity chefs trolling us on Twitter. Yeah,
bonjour, Michelle. Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, if you're watching, give us a leave in the comments. And we had a little bit of fun though. We thought we'd do a bit of a few different Lions food puns this evening in honor of Michelle. We've got. I said hog roast, but then it's a family podcast, so I'm not sure about that. Ian had a couple of good. We've got I had shark fin soup.
Nice.
Ian's was fish in a water Etzebeth. A bit of a stretch one. He's making some pollard pork. He said, He said, "Am making some pollard pork even better." I'm not sure. I think he means pulled pork, but it's a stretch. He said, "If only South Africa were fit, they could have braised oxnish. Yeah,
They're awful. They're awful.
They are awful. They're terrible.
It's even worse. I had one off. Was it Shu Han van der Merwe? But that
that's
was
good.
rubbish as well.
There's the I had the bomb squad, but I think that only works in writing.
Yeah, bomb with an E, is that?
Yeah, bomb with an E. Yeah. So there you go. If you've got drop that, if you can think of any Lions and Springboks related food puns, drop them in the comments and we'll pick them up. This week though, or this weekend just gone, it was the start of the FORSOC Super 6. This is going to see us through to the start of the URC and kind of cover us through to the start of club rugby, which will be starting very soon as well. We're going to do every week for the next few weeks. We're going to call it Pick of the Six and do some just kind of pick up some interesting talking points and things from the 3 games every week. Craig, I'm interested in taking up I'm interested in the Super 6 now that it's happening in isolation of club rugby, kind of, because I know the club season's due to start soon, and the URC. And I think I would hope it would continue because it kind of will give us almost year-round rugby.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Super 6 needs this breathing space to kind of get the attention it needs.
Absolutely. It was funny. I was sitting downstairs and we put on YouTube to bring them up and watched a couple of games, and it was just almost taking a weight off my shoulders to see some rugby, some Scottish rugby, and to take me away from the constant Lions barrage at the moment. So I think it's perfect timing, and it's been an interesting start to the season for them.
It has been. I think that as a product, it looks good. I would say the one thing I watched the Birmingham Bears Heritage game was the live game on the Friday night. So all Friday night games, for those that don't know, are live on the iPlayer and BBC Sports Scotland. And we haven't been able to find it on the iPlayer since. I think you have to watch it live. I don't think they keep it, but it's on the SIU YouTube channel. And I think
it's on Free Sports as well.
Yeah, and all the games are on Free Sports. So if you get the Free Sport, you can watch it live on Free Sports, which is on your Digiboxes and your Sky Sports your Sky boxes. Anyway, excuse me. But you can also get the Free Sports app, which is free to download, and you watch the games back afterwards as well. The SIU are also putting out a highlights package, and they're fairly extended highlights as well. I would say they're not just kind of, here's the scores. I watched the Boroughmuir and the Heriot's game, or most of it, and then I watched the highlights of the other games because I didn't have time to watch all 3. I think that as a package is quite attractive as well. The fact that you can, it's accessible to everybody for free. And again, like you said, there's no other rugby happening at the minute. I think Boroughmuir and Heriot's was a sellout at the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the stats now. So at the moment the highlights are starting. Got 2,000 views on the highlights of round 1 at the moment. The view of the live stream on YouTube has got 5,000 views at the minute. So these, they're promising numbers. Heriot's and Boroughmuir Bears. Then that was kind of with that game. I'm surprised the way that went result wise, because I really like the look of how Boroughmuir Bears are shaping up. They looked conditioning wise. They looked much. There was a difference between the condition of the Boroughmuir players, particularly in the front row, I thought, compared, and it showed a little bit.
Yeah.
But maybe with the fact that nobody's played rugby for so long, there was a bit of rustiness, and I'm excited to see what Boroughmuir can do with the way that they're playing if they stop trying to overplay it, and if they cut out the errors, because they put Heriot's didn't seem to be in the Boroughmuir 22 an awful lot. and Boromir were knocking on the door for a lot of that match.
Yeah, this was a fantastic round for me being a How man. We had three ex How players in both teams, so it was great to see Rory Drummond and Cammy Fenton and Ian Wilson all playing, because we don't. Okay, fair enough. Cammy, we've seen him every so often play for Edinburgh, but we don't. You don't get to see a lot of these players who have graduated from your club team into the Super 6. Unless you actually physically go to the game. So it was great. Heriots looked a little bit on the out. Boroughmuir definitely were ready for the game, and Colleen Barreto looked fantastic, looked on form, looked like a nine that is wanting to go places. I was impressed, and he's becoming a more of a senior member of the team, but Tom Brown looked absolutely fantastic. He made a couple of wee mistakes, but his pace was phenomenal. There was one point he received a ball. I think the winger received the kick and then passed it to Tom Brown, and he took off, and then was tackled and injured the player who tackled him. He looked incredibly quick. So a close game, and it was there was an opportunity for Heriots to win the game, and unfortunately they didn't take it.
Yeah, which is a shame for them, because I think for me I think Boromir played the better rugby out of the two teams. You can tell they've got a set of former Sevens, Scotland Sevens coach as their head coach for the way that they played. I think you're right. Barreto, I really liked the way that he was man of the match. I think he played. I actually quite like Tom Pittman there, the standoff as well.
Yeah,
kind of he was really. I thought he played really well. There was a point he just kind of whipped the pass too quickly, and he could have sent. He could have had a try near the end. So it was an enjoyable game to watch. It was exciting. It was entertaining. I think I think as a starting point for the Super 6 as a product going forward, if you see them, and this was true across all three matches, if everybody starts to tighten things up and everybody starts to get their conditioning right, then this is going to be an exciting tournament.
Yeah, I think it's a good start. I think this is really the start that they've needed compared to the last season they played, because they needed the exposure of being able to, people being able to watch the games, as we've discussed before. Traveling through to Ayr isn't an option for a lot of people to go and watch Ayr Watsonians, for example. So, it's great to be able to put it up on the TV and watch it, so that getting the ability to watch and see some of these players come through,
and also not competing with the pro teams or the clubs at the weekend as well. So if people want to go and see rugby, if it's the only thing in show, it draws people in, and the games are entertaining as well. They're not. These aren't that. I mean, it might be because it's summer rugby as well, which I know in Scotland there's a long debate about whether or not that's a good or a bad thing. But it's apart from the Boroughmuir Heriots game was 15-13, but it didn't feel like a 15-13 match. But the other games, it's 20 plus points every other team scoring.
And they were close. They were all within a score.
All within a score as well. I mean, and again, like you said, you talked about the end of the Heriots game. The end of the Southern Knights game, like Southern Knights getting going over the line at the end, and with missing the conversion, and then still being time to play, to draw the match at 24-all is anyway. That it's good that everybody's playing good running rugby, and that there's quick ball coming. And I think if it's one, I think it needs to be we want this to be an entertaining product for people to watch, and that's one of it. But the other thing I think a lot of people are looking for is to be a development, get a step up, or an ability to let players step up. And I think if they continue to play at that pace in the way that they do week in, week out, it'll get better.
Yeah, and I think there are, if you go and look at the squad announcements, for example, when they announced all the squads, etc., they are trying to put across that, for example, Heriots were saying that 90% of their squad have played club rugby or have graduated through the academies, the Scottish academies, and they are trying to, I guess, nail their, what's the word? They are trying to tell everyone, look, we are developing Scottish players. We are trying to, rather than just signing in. They have obviously brought in a few players here and there, but
I think that's interesting because I was thinking about this. And I know we were kind of down on about it in the podcast in the past, but thinking about it, for a new competition, it makes sense because if you want to have set the standard from the off, you kind of need guys who are coming in from New Zealand, South Africa, maybe, who are at that higher standard and are coming in and setting the standard for the players that are there and saying, look, you want to get past me. I've been brought in off a YouTube highlights reel that somebody sent over here just to kind of have a gap year in Scotland. You want to push me out of the team, you're going to have to raise the level of your game. Yeah. And that pushes everybody on. So it might be that for the next 2, 3, 4 seasons, we'll see players coming in. It might even be something you see longer term. I mean, you've seen, the South African teams do it, I think, for the Currie Cup. And I think I can't remember the equivalent of it in New Zealand. They have the cup in New Zealand as well, but I can't remember the name.
I've forgotten what that is.
Someone will jump in the comments 20 seconds after we've talked about this and tell me what it is. But there's the equivalent that you see like all the pros in New Zealand drop down to every year as well, and they're drafting players from overseas. And again, it's just, I think it sets the standard. It pushes the other players on. So I don't think it's a bad thing so long as the teams aren't filled with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also, it's. I think the visibility now and seeing the visibility that we're getting now, for it, I think it's going to give more impetus for the club players. They have, if we can extend it to 8 clubs, you'll have more people have the opportunity to go and actually, knock on the door and actually have a chance of playing semi-professional rugby, and they can see if they're going to hack it as well, rather than being lumped into into an Edinburgh squad or a Glasgow squad where they're sitting in they're running bags for people because they're not at that level, but they're actually going to get, especially with pros who have been up there and they're coming back down the way, they're going to raise their game for them. They're going to get to it's going to bring them up. I think it's a positive move. I think it really is. And then, obviously Southern Knights having Ross Ford as one of their assistant coaches is just awesome too.
So Michael says the MPC, it was the Mitre 10. It was the Mitre 10 we were thinking of in the New Zealand. But again, that's the other thing. It's an opportunity for young coaches as well, isn't it? To come in and for guys to drop down. Like Robbie Nairn was playing for Ayr at the weekend, and Robbie Nairn was a very exciting prospect for Glasgow, and just there's obviously something going on there that we just don't know about, that meant that he never kind of kicked on in the way that everyone thought he should have done. The fact that someone like that can drop down though and maybe have a second chance at playing at a reasonable level and say, do you know what, I'm just going to sort myself out for a season and then I'll give it another crack, or here's a chance to kind of show that I've still got something about me, I think is good, because we've seen the drop. We've talked about it again before on the podcast, the kind of drop off of players who it's professional, you're in the Glasgow or Edinburgh squads, or it's nothing. Like here's a way that you can carry on playing to a reasonable level. Here's a way that we're developing young coaches in Scotland, and like I said, I think the standard looks good.
It looks okay. And I think it's going to be it'll be an interesting season to watch, and I'm looking forward to watching it, which is a plus point for me as well.
Yeah. So a couple of people saying, Michael saying this, the MPC is all pro, which is the Mitre 10. I think it's the level below that that's semi-pro, and that's the heartland. I think we'll get there, Michael. Let's not walk before we can run. There's no reason, I don't think, if. It's good it's been given its own space. I would hope the SRU continue to do that, because it'll struggle against the URC, I think, going forward. But as a way of saying, look, there's no tests on at the moment. There's no other, there's no professional rugby on at the moment, but here's some other rugby that's at a good standard you might want to see, and you might even recognise some of the names of the players and some of the name of the coaches, and come along and make an afternoon of it. I think will be attractive to a lot of people. Magnus saying they plan on reviewing the format in 3 or 4 years. Yeah, I think that's, and again, if we can get to Super 8, like you said, Craig, and we can have another team in the West, another team in the Borders, and maybe one up north. I know that makes it Super. That makes it Super 9, but
Super 9. Well, Super 9 is that not a film? No, it's anyway.
Super 8. Super 8 is the film.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to Super 9 it for copyright reasons.
It's one of those situations. I worry about it a little bit. I was a little bit concerned when it came. I remember when it was all announced and the SRU put out the standards that you had to set to be a Super 6 club. And for example, one close to my heart, each team had to have a women's team playing within their club. And for example, the Southern Knights had a Melrose women's team up until they got announced as a Super 6 club and then disbanded it straight away. Boroughmuir, I don't think, have a women's team on at the moment, but you've got Heriot, Stirling County, Ayrshire, Ayr and Watsonians all have women's teams. I think if we keep them to their standards that they're expected to feed back to club rugby, I think as long as we do that and we keep on that, I think it will be a good thing. I still find it difficult that Watsonians and Boroughmuir are across the road from each other.
Yeah.
You walk out of Megatland and you've parked your car outside Watsonians. It's just ridiculous. Although if you look at how they're performing, then they look evenly matched, so maybe they deserve to be there. It's difficult.
I mean, we'll see how that goes. Watching that game, I think Heriot will struggle. I think Boroughmuir looked rusty. I think, like I said, I thought that Rory Drummond was one. I think Rory Drummond looks like a phenomenal number 8, but he was overplaying at times. I think he took into contact when things went on, but that's just a lack of game time. It said on the commentary, the gaps look bigger than they actually are sometimes, and you can understand it's the first game. Everyone's keen to kind of have a run out, but I don't know. But Boroughmuir, they looked to me like a difference in class between Boroughmuir and Heriot, and I think it was just that Boroughmuir weren't clinical enough on the day. And looking at the other games from the weekend, I think Heriot will be the one to struggle against the other teams.
Yeah, I think looking at them, I thought the Bulls looked quite good. Watsonians like to handle the ball well, and they threw the ball around quite a lot and played rugby, if you know what I mean. So I think Heriots are only really for me a pre-season away from it. I know they're already playing in it, but I think if they have another season, I think you might find Heriots coming through because they've got the names, they've got the players. It's just a matter of getting them maybe match fit, a little bit more match fit. But yeah, I think Boroughmuir have got a good shout at if they can get rid of the errors, they've got a good shout of taking it this season. Yeah. Just on the first game,
Yeah, I didn't like the Stirling County shots. I will say that.
Yeah,
they were absolutely atrocious.
I thought there was 2 problems with that game. First one was Stirling County needed to cut their grass. And second of all, I'm sorry, but the Southern Knights, every time Southern Knights is mentioned, I think about Glenn Campbell singing it.
Yeah, it's a terrible, we've talked about this one, it's absolutely it's a terrible name. Like, I know they will want to avoid the Reavers. I know with all the connotations, but it just makes and I know there were knights and there's fables about King Arthur and the Eildon Hills near Melrose and stuff, but it's an awful, awful name. It still sounds to me like it's some secret organization or an offshoot of the KKK.
That's bang on. It seems I play for the How Knights, I used to play for the How Knights along with Johnny, and we love the Knights, and it's on our badge and this, that, and the other, and that's fine. And I understand the Knights side of things, but the problem is, you've got a Glenn Campbell song that everybody knows that just makes you sing it in your head, and second of all, just as you say, it just you just think of the Deep South. It doesn't help that I'm watching reruns of True Blood at the moment, but it's just, all I think is there's these guys down in Melrose losing the Melrose accent, going, "Man, Mr. Ford, you can lift so much."
Mr. Ford, you make me feel so unnecessary with your power lifts.
Maybe it's just the way that they've changed the pit and they make the green yards to plastic pitches. That's maybe the problem.
There's no way anybody's fanning themselves in Melrose with the weather there. Or this, it's so hot outside tonight. I don't like the name the Southern Knights. I hope they change at some point. Sarah is in the comments. She says Melrose ladies sadly disbanded prior to the Super 6 starting, but it wasn't related to that. I'd like you said though, Craig. I hope they do something about that. I hope I understand with COVID and stuff. I think there's a lot of rugby clubs struggling to get people in. I know Berwick has had good numbers at training for the ladies and maybe dropped off a little bit as life returns to normal. And it is hard to get things started because a lot of clubs are starting. Or you're heavily involved. A lot of clubs are kind of starting from year zero with it. You're just having to get people in just to kind of even introduce kind of the concept of rugby.
Yeah.
But what I would hope they don't do is just kind of co-opt another club's hard work and bring it in, but maybe kind of look to offer facilities and coaching and partner up with somebody would be the right way forward, I think.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that Dundee had put together. They were partnering up with, it was a mixture of two Dundee clubs and also the university. So I think that was quite a nice mix there that they were going to try to put together. Just going back to Sarah's point, listen, I have absolutely no problem with Melrose ladies. It was one of the women. It was one of our last games we played before they disbanded, and we played them, and it was an absolutely fabulous day, a great bunch. And we had it's always been my dream to play at the Green Yards. I never got to play at the Green Yards, but I got to coach at the Green Yards, and I got to sit at the sidelines, and it was fabulous. So that was a great memory. So I can't say very much about that apart from I'm sorry if I got that wrong, but I think just as you say, it's as long as we have to be careful that we're not we're not taking players away from different clubs to come into a middle ground, because we all want all of our clubs to play rugby, and we want as many people within the sport as we possibly can.
Yeah. Here. We've not got much else to discuss. Rico, you got any hands in the ruck? I know we kind of covered some last week. Anything?
Hands in the ruck. The All Blacks are at their there's Australia showing us. I never thought I'd say this, that Australia are showing us how to deal with errant players and sort them out. And then the All Blacks, by the way, you can go and do whatever you want, and then you'll get a cup. 2-game ban or whatever it was for what I would think should be a bannable offence completely. If proven guilty.
If proven guilty, but I mean, they've got what they're supposed to. They're famous for having the no penis head policy. And I don't see how that kind of goes into that at all. I don't see how that fits into that. I know it's innocent until proven guilty. I know you give somebody a chance to. You give people a chance. I believe in redemption. I believe that people can. I don't like. I don't think cancel culture exists. I think Johnny hit the nail on the head a few weeks ago when we called it consequence culture. I think that's right, and I believe that people, if they can show they've learned from something, absolutely have the right to come back, and if they. But that's not a 2-game ban. To demonstrate you're truly remorseful for something that you've learned, you need to go away and show that. You need to go away and do work on yourself, work with other charities, whoever, organizations, to kind of give something back before you're then allowed to, step into what is, at the minute, it's the biggest brand in world rugby, isn't it?
But and again, we go back to what's acceptable in your rugby club, and if you accept. We don't like, no penis heads in here, but it depends what your description of a penis head is. And if it's acceptable to go and do that and get a slap on the wrist, then I find that difficult, especially from what we're being told is the best team in the world, play the best rugby in the world, are one of the most recognisable rugby teams in the world.
Supposedly the best culture, sports culture, one of the best, most often cited sports cultures in the world, and yeah,
they need to be leaders.
Yeah,
that's it.
My hands in the ruck is the way that people are talking about, and Brian O'Driscoll was one of these, talking about the players who haven't been picked for any of the tests or even picked for the third tests. And I think Brian O'Driscoll's projecting a little bit when he talks about this, saying, how are they going to feel that they've gone out on tour and they've not played any of the tests? I think, firstly, I don't think as professional sportsmen, they're going out there. They shouldn't be going out there with an expectation that they're going to be given the jersey for a test. Yeah. They should all be going out there knowing they've got to work for it and pushing each other. I think with this tour, and it's hard to know because it might just be the COVID circumstances, but we've had, as far as I'm aware, there's been, apart from the first squad being leaked, and we've no idea who that was by, we've had no leaks of any dissent within camp, whereas in previous years you've had like Matt Dawson writing a column in the Metro about how bad things are from inside the camp. We've had there's been nothing on social media. There's been no grumbling. There's been no hit. Nobody's come back from too early homesick. Josh Adams has watched his wife give birth via Zoom, and and Warren Gatland's talked openly, presumably with Josh Adams' permission, that that's something that Josh Adams has struggled with. Mm-hmm. But it seems like they're a very close-knit group of players, and obviously Gregor Townsend and Warren Gatland, the other coaches, have produced a culture within the Lions this year where everyone feels like they're contributing. And that hasn't always been true of the previous tours, where even the last tour, I think Warren Gatland probably learned from that, where they had, the midweek squad, felt separate from the test squad, and maybe it was very apparent early on who was playing and who wasn't in the test team. But it doesn't feel like that this time around. And you would hope, and certainly what seems to be coming out is that everybody who isn't picked understands the contribution that they then make in training every day to pushing the guys that have been picked to win. So they're if the 23 or the 50, how many players get on the pitch on Saturday, win that, it won't be just because of those players, it'll be because of the entire squad, because midweek they're the Springboks, right? In training, they're the ones that are going hell for leather, putting them under pressure, so they can then perform on the Saturday. And you would hope there is and certainly there seems to be the culture within it that they seem a tight knit group, and it seems to be that everyone's bought into that. So I think it's a bit of a false narrative that there's going to be players who are kind of, obviously privately they might be quite upset and gutted, and that would only be right, I guess. But I don't think anybody's going to be seething with resentment.
No, let's break it down to the most basic facts and what this tour really has been about this year, and that's money. They're being paid a hell of a lot of money for 6 to 9 weeks of their life. They are they're able to come back to wherever they're going to be playing, and when they're renegotiating their contract, they are Lions player Louis Rees-Zammit, Josh Adams, Hamish Watson, etc. So that automatically adds an amount of money on top of what they usually get. So there's two very basic things, but I think also you're always going to have it. If you look back at all the Lions tours, you've got guys that are on tour who are brand new to it, like Hogg was three tours ago, like Finn was last. Well, okay, he was a Geography 6, I suppose, but he was a geography player. But they were on tour to be taught the ropes, shown the ropes. This is what we expect from you, and then they will feature in the next tour. So you've got your Rees-Zammit, your Sam Simmons, your Ali Prices, because Ali Price will probably ooh, we'll have a good shot at going next time. But also you've got your players the other side that have been there, done that, and are on their way out, like the Jamie Georges, the Owen Farrells, the Brian O'Driscolls, etc. So that's going to happen. So I think, being a Lion in these COVID times, being able to go away 6 to 9 weeks, have a huge amount of fun, be paid a huge amount of money, and go and play the sport that you're professionally expected to play, and all the different things that you're now going to be called a Lion for the rest of your life. I think it's a pretty good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think anybody's coming back from this tour writing any horrid books, because I don't think there's going to be any backlash from the setup of the way things were. Maybe there is. Maybe they're all.
It'll be interesting.
Be interesting to see. That's it for this week. Anyway, I didn't get time to talk about Glenn Bryce MCing over Adamash DJing whilst Fat Man Scoop rapped. That was not. Ever in a million years expect to see Glenn Bryce MCing in LA whilst Adamash DJ'd, and Fat Man Scoop was also there. But
staying out of that completely. That's
baffling. It's on Adamash's Instagram. Go and have a look at that. But
one thing, though, MLR looks fantastic. I look like I quite fancy a trip to go and watch one of those games.
I know the merchandise is absolutely beautiful. I want a Giltini. I'm getting a Giltini shirt.
Johnny McGinty is absolutely over the moon with the vests that are available. He just wants to get a vest.
I'm banning vests on this podcast. I made it very clear. It's a no vest podcast. Making it full regulate. I was looking up this week. It's regulation law 4, I think, or law 8. I can't remember which one. One of the laws which says, I'm going to make it the same law for the thing, which is the arm of your t-shirt must come halfway between the shoulder and the elbow.
Well, absolutely. The problem I have with vests is that I get a little bit of sloobage popping out on the other side, but that's a different story. Nobody wants to see that.
No. Anyway, so that's on that note. That's it for me and Craig this week. We'll be back next week to review the third test, and we'll have a review. I think there's some Super 6 games this weekend as well. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe we'll have another 2 podcasts next week. For the moment, though, it is goodbye from me and goodbye from Craig.
Goodbye, all.